Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crash Zoom. I'm Sammie Purcell, Associate Editor with Rough Draft Atlanta, and I'm here, as always, with Aaron Strand, an indie filmmaker here in Atlanta. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing okay, Sammie. It was a long, eventful weekend. My daughter turned 3 years old yesterday.
Happy birthday!
Oh my God, she was having such a blast. Yeah, so we're getting older. What can I say? Times are changing, and but I'm happy to be here podcasting with you.
Me too. If you've never listened to Crash Zoom before and you listen today and you like what you hear, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also watch us on YouTube at Crash Zoom Podcast. So be sure to do that and be sure to rate and review too. That really helps us out. If you've never listened to Crash Zoom before, welcome. What Aaron and I like to do here is we take a look at what's going on in the film industry on a big picture level, and we try to boil down why that matters to the independent filmmaker. But before we get into some of our news items today, as always, we're going to start with one question. What have you been watching lately, Aaron?
Yeah, so we had some company staying with us from out of town, and they also had a toddler. So we had one night where we hired a babysitter to go out as like couples to like have a night out on the town, and we weren't really sure what to do, and so I started to kind of work because like these are the people that were hanging out with us are like not movie people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not at all. So, but I started to kind of hint. I was like, hey, they're showing a Nora on 35 millimeter over at the Terra Theater. Like, what do you think? What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like pushed it, and finally everyone kind of broke and was like, all right, we'll go do it. So it's got to take them up to the cinema, and we saw a Nora on 35. It was the first time that my wife and like any of our friends had seen it. And they loved it. It was, the movie just hits. Like, it's such a special film. It was my second time seeing it. I enjoyed it even more the second time. The 35 print looked absolutely gorgeous, so I loved to like introduce it to them on those terms. So that was really awesome, and I think everyone had a really good time. And then because they also have a toddler, so there was like a lot of toddler time over the weekend. I was exhausted. Oh my God. So by the time that they left yesterday, I turned to Shub and was like, all right, I need some time. I need a night to watch something very adult and like I need to connect with myself. So I watched a movie called Thundercrack by Kurt McDowell. This is a movie that was like very, very, very hard to see for a really long time. But it was put out, there was a DVD that was put out a few years ago. Okay, get this. This is a mid-70s pastiche, black and white, gothic horror, hardcore porno turned camp comedy. So imagine like the aesthetic of Young Frankenstein, the comedic stylings of John Waters with hardcore, straight, and gay pornography splattered throughout. There was also a horny gorilla involved that was also having sex with people. Wild film. Never seen anything like it. I can't say that I'm like itching for a rewatch, but I'm really glad that I did watch it because it was pretty fun.
Well, I'm going to take a hard turn from all of that. So last night I went to Out on Film. The queer film festival here in Atlanta is doing like a little mini fest this week. So got a couple more screenings tonight and tomorrow. Well, we're recording this on a Tuesday, but so Tuesday and Wednesday. So there'll be only a few left by the time this comes out. But last night on Monday, I went to see The Wedding Banquet, which is Andrew Ahn's kind of queerer update of the Ang Lee movie from the 90s. I really wanted to be able to, this is an Ang Lee I haven't seen, and it's like nowhere to be found. It's not streaming. I looked for like a physical copy and could only find like a $25 DVD, which I might get because I really want to watch it. But I don't know, Criterion, get on that or something. Like, I really want to be able to watch it.
Ang Lee's The Banquet?
The Wedding Banquet.
The Wedding Banquet. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm looking. I'm scouring my off the record sites while you talk.
Oh my God, thank you. But so this is sort of a queer-er update of that movie. So it stars Bowen Yang, Lily Gladstone is in it, Kelly Marie Tran. And it was really heartwarming. It was a very kind of sweet, a little wacky dramedy. There were some things that maybe were a little clunky, but it was just kind of this like very soft, very funny, sweet movie that kind of just hit you like right where you wanted it to, you know? Very easy watch. You kind of like everyone involved. Joan Chen is in it, which is a great little ad. Like, it was just a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was very sweet.
That's awesome. And I am emailing you the link to Ang Lee's The Wedding Banquet right
Thank
now.
you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, really, I really like Ang Lee, and I like when I got the tickets for this, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch the original before I go, and just like could not find it anywhere. And I was very disappointed. So yeah. But that's what I've been watching. It was very good.
Nice.
Highly recommend. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool. Does that have distribution in line yet, or is it making the festival rounds?
I'm not sure. I think so. It premiered at Sundance, but it premiered the second week, so I wasn't able to go, and I don't think it was online. I believe Out on Film kind of got it direct from Sundance, so I don't really have any deets on the distribution plans for it as of yet. But I hope
haven't
it gets
read
some.
anything.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool. Cool. I'll keep my eyes peeled.
Awesome.
But the Bowen Yang come up continues.
He's really, really charming. Like, I mean, he's very funny. Andrew Ahn also did Fire Island, which came out a few years ago. It was on Hulu, kind of the queer Pride and Prejudice sort of with Joel Kim Booster. And I like that a lot too. So it seems he's kind of doing these like updates on, I guess, older kind of stories, which is kind of nice. I like it.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive into some news this week, taking another hard turn from sweet, sensitive, funny movies that make us feel good.
Yeah, Thundercrack, exactly. I know.
Thundercrack, yeah, for sure. I can't get over that name. Like, you said movies for adults, and then you said Thundercrack, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a 14-year-old boy named it, but all right. Sorry,
I keep talking about Thundercrack, but it's like that. The movie's like 2.5 hours long with a lot of dialogue, and all the dialogue is like witty double entendres. But the original sound recording is so terrible. I had to watch it with subtitles because I could, even though there's just Americans speaking English, I could not decipher what the hell they were saying. Yeah,
totally
so
get
Thundercrack definitely implied double entendre.
Oh my God. All right, let's move on. So this first news item today is an article titled, "Can Mike and Pam Survive at Warner's?" This is from Puck. It's written by Kim Masters, and it's essentially concerning Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy and their tactics at Warner Brothers. So, little history. Those two took over as co-chairpersons and CEOs in 2022, I believe, and they're both sort of known for taking big swings on original material. And this article is just sort of looking at their upcoming slate, looking at some things they've done in the past, and kind of just doing a rundown of what's going on. Are they doing well? Is it working? Are they failing? And the lowdown on that, they've done a lot of big, expensive movies from big, splashy directors. So Joker 2 is one of those that obviously failed at the box office. Mickey 17 is another one from Bong Joon-ho. It's not doing very well financially right now. So that's just a little bit of background. And I think what I kind of took away from this article is it's a pretty good rundown of just like the inherent tension between business and art. And I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on that. What were your sort of major takeaways from this?
I'll be honest. So there's been a lot of talk, a lot of hand-wringing around the Warner Brothers quote-unquote auteur strategy. While every other major studio is going towards big IP, Mike and Pam over at Warner's have taken this more auteur strategy in terms of giving big budgets to auteur filmmakers to make projects that they care about. Obviously, upcoming we've got the new Paul Thomas Anderson film with a like a $140 million budget, $150 million.
I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but it's rumored. That is the talk. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the new Ryan Coogler original film, not a Ryan Coogler IP film, but a Ryan Coogler original film, Sinners.
Exciting.
Exactly. We've got the Margot Robbie produced, Emerald Fennell directed Wuthering Heights. Yeah, we got the new Alejandro Inarritu film with Tom Cruise in the works. So and Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride. So like they've got all these auteur things. But I got to be honest, I do think that this is a little bit overstated in terms of so there's two sides of it. Number one, while they have these films, they also have the Warner Brothers IP tentpoles coming down the line.
And this goes into Superman sort of at the end and how much there is writing on that. Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, so there's a lot riding on Superman in this sort of DC universe reset, but they still have the sequel to the Batman like on deck. They've got the Minecraft movie, they've got a Cat in the Hat movie, they've got the next Godzilla versus Kong, which for some reason like keep breaking their own box
People
office like
love those.
Dude, I as a hardcore Godzilla fan, I do not understand it to my core. It's so dumb.
I've never seen any of them, so
my god, they are trash. But all this to say, you know, I think what they're doing is actually just a really savvy balance between IP and auteur strategy. And look, are the budgets a little big? Yes. But this might become I don't know, they're just it might be a little bit of the new normal. Like the inflation is hitting the film industry just as much as anywhere else. And not everybody can do the A24 strategy of terms of self-produced films coming in at a $10 to $6 million budget. And look, I mean, this really should not come as any surprise knowing Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi's history. I mean, these are indie film people to the core. I mean, the fact that PTA is getting this huge payday. So for those who don't know, Mike DeLuca has produced every PTA film since Boogie Nights. I mean, since the very, very beginning. He has been PTA's champion all the way back at New Line Cinema and all the way to today. Pam Abdi's first producing credit was on Garden State. You know, I mean, so these two have been in the sort of auteur waters for over 20 years. They're executing the strategy that they know. And you know, look, the other side of it is that Warner Brothers needs to get right with the film gods. Do you believe in the film gods, Sammie?
I do, actually. And David Zaslav is their number one enemy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so David Zaslav, he's over here canceling films to get tax write-offs. You know, they have unreleased films, The Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme. They totally stabbed Clint Eastwood in the back with their distribution of Juror Number 2 last year. They have been thumbing their nose at the film gods, and I think thank God that Mike and Pam are out here trying to get right, trying to tithe a little, you know, make some financial sacrifices at the altar and get back on the film gods' good graces.
Yeah, you know, I brought up that tension between business and art thing just because, like, I think David Zaslav is like a businessman, and these two producers who are in charge of this sort of, obviously they're interested in the final financial success too as well, but they're also, at least from the outside, seem to be interested in like producing interesting art, giving interesting filmmakers like the chance to make these huge, crazy, big budget movies. Like Mickey 17 is not my favorite Bong Joon-ho movie, but I think it's amazing that he got like however much, $120 million, I think it was, something like that, to make like a crazy sci-fi, very strange movie that he wanted to make. Like, that's a world I want to live in, where he has the ability to do that. And there's a lot of kind of talk in this article about like these directors getting final cut. I can't find the exact paragraph right now, but I remember that sort of being like a sticking point. I think it was with the Ryan Coogler Sinners movie. Like they were somewhere else at first, and Ryan Coogler wanted final cut, and they were like, absolutely hell not. And then I think he's gonna have that here at Warner Brothers, and Bong had it too, obviously. But I'm like, if you're gonna work with these exciting filmmakers, which like I consider Ryan Coogler an exciting filmmaker, I'm so happy he's not making like another Black Panther movie. I'm happy he's back doing something original. Like, that's sort of the trade-off. And I think like Pam and Mike, as they're called in the title of this article, seem to understand that that's just the trade-off you have to do if you want to work with like smart, interesting filmmakers. You have to work with them, you know?
Yeah, I mean the Final Cut stuff is always going to be a sticking issue. It has
Yeah.
been for a century within the various iterations of the studio system. On the Ryan Coogler issue, let's be real, Hollywood owes that man his
They do.
his film. I mean, after
I'm
the
sorry,
Black Panthers, after Creed, he's done like 6 for them. He needs one for him. Like whatever he wants to do, just
and he did
say yes.
6 for them, like either really well or as like well as he could given the circumstances. Like I do not put any failure of Black Panther 2 at his feet. There's like so much sadness and so much going on with that movie, but like Creed is good. I like the first Black Panther a lot. Like, he's a great filmmaker.
Well, great. I don't know. I mean, I think that
all right, Aaron, calm down.
He has done the job. He's done the job
Creed
that was
rocks.
handed to him, and he made all those the people that he worked with. He made them a ton of money by being more than competent. Greatness. Let's not throw the G word around too loosely here, Sammie. I mean,
see, I don't really consider greatness the best qualifier it can give a director. Maybe that's our disconnect there. But he's a great filmmaker.
What's the best
master?
Qualifier
Excellent. Perfection. He's a great filmmaker. He makes great movies. I think Creed's a great movie.
What? You think Creed's a great movie?
Yeah, I love Creed.
What are your qualifications for greatness? I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious.
Well made, entertaining, emotional, good character development. And I think within like the strain of IP, he has shown that he can do that. And that's really impressive. And it's exciting to see him to get to do it outside of it as well.
Yeah. I like the word that you used at the end there. I would go, it's an impressive film. I think Ryan Coogler is an impressive filmmaker, and he's had an impressive run on the IP merry-go-round.
I don't know. We need to be excited about young people who are. I don't know. I'm excited about him. He's an exciting.
I'm excited
filmmaker.
too. I'm excited too. I'm very excited.
That's what I mean.
And I want him to take more. I want more for Ryan Coogler. I want more films.
I do too, but I still think it's to make me excited. I don't think I'd seen the first Rocky movie when I saw Creed. You know what I mean? Like I was not a Rocky person. I was not like. My parents didn't watch it, so it wasn't something that was really like, I guess, foisted onto us growing up. Yeah. And I loved Creed, So I don't know. I think that's an achievement.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Have you gone back and watched the first Rocky since then?
I did watch the first Rocky, and it also rules.
Right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It hits.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I was watching it, and I was sort of like, I remember kind of at the beginning, I was like, I don't know about this. This is kind of weird. Sylvester Stallone's such a weirdo.
He's so weird.
He's so weird, but he kind of pulls you in with that weirdo charm by the end of it. It's like inescapable. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
He does. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nothing more amazing than watching a film like that. That's like basically an indie film, like, ascending beyond its limitations.
For sure.
And drawing you so deeply into the quirk. But anyway, I don't know how we got onto Sylvester Stallone. All that to say, look, Mike and Pam, keep doing your thing. Mm-hmm. And I think, look, you brought it up the most important issue. If this was not happening under the umbrella of David Zaslav, I think there would be some concerns about budget and sort of, like, how is this going to be sustainable? But it's the fact that it's happening within the Zazverse that is so weird and is making people really fret.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to something that we kind of lightly, I guess this lightly corresponds to something we talked about a few weeks ago during Sundance. But this is an article from Indiewire. It's by Brian Welk. It's titled, Why Mark Duplass is Independently Releasing Series The Long, Long Night via Crowdfunding and Community Screenings. Just to pause, I think that title is funny because it's like, why is he doing it? Because it doesn't have a distribution. But anyway, let's go on. I was like, I know the answer.
Rhetorical question in the title.
Anyway, Mark Duplass is independently releasing his new TV series, The Long, Long Night. So this premiered at Tribeca last year and still hasn't gotten distribution. And he's essentially going to distribute it through a series of crowdfunding and community theatrical screenings before then making it available to the public. So the way this is working is he's doing it via a partnership with a company called Seed and Spark. And then is it Kinema? Is that the hard K at the beginning of that? Yeah. So he's launching the crowdfunding campaign for the series through Seed and Spark to basically fuel its marketing. And through that, backers of the series will be able to get early access to the series. And then through Kinema, he's going to arrange some in-person community screenings. And the first wave of backers will be able to access it on April 14th. And then it will be released publicly to the wider public on April 28th. So we talked about Mark Duplass a little bit when we talked about Sundance a few weeks ago. We were discussing Cooper Raiff and his new TV series and the sort of indie TV thing, this kind of trend that started popping off a little bit at Sundance. And this feels like a jumping off point of that for me, but it sort of feels like something Mark Duplass can do because he's Mark Duplass. And also not that different from what indie filmmakers or creators have had to do for a long time, I guess. What are your sort of thoughts on this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it does in the just with the most general sense of sort of an artist bootstrapping their creation,
having to be creative, I guess. Yeah,
100%. I mean, I do think this is pretty new territory in terms of digital distribution, and I do think the digital landscape really makes for some different just different vibes around sort of accessibility and sort of barriers to accessibility, barriers to discoverability. I mean, look, just overall, I mean, this is great. I respect this a huge amount.
Yeah, for sure.
I totally agree that Mark Duplass can do this because he's Mark Duplass, because he already has a large platform. He's a respected voice within the industry. He has been going ham on Seed and Spark in terms of like backing projects and picking projects to back. And, he has a company that sets up that throws a little bit of money at various projects on Seed and Spark pretty much every month. Didn't give my project any money, but that's beside the point. And so he's out here kind of like really walking the walk, not just talking the talk
sure.
in the build up to this, which is really, really cool. Now, as far as some of the claims, and look, it's not just the Seed and Spark Kinema partnership, which has last year released an independent distribution playbook through their platforms, which is really interesting. And basically Duplass is trying to execute upon that playbook, and the playbook is roughly sort of retain control of your creation, retain control of your art, use digital platform and the zero cost distribution of the internet to market your platform, and then try to make the crossover into sort of independent screenings, or if you're going to do in-person events, try to hold on to control of that, because it's the only way your film is ever going to get into the theaters. And there's sort of a lot of referencing around like what Hundreds of Beavers did last year, and sort of that is sort of a an executable model. So it's cool that Duplass is acting upon that and actually putting the advice into action. Now, some of the claims that he and other companies that are out there currently are making about this sort of revolutionizing the industry, that's where I sort of start to raise an eyebrow. I think that this is even if this pilot of the Duplass strategy was to really lead to the Seed and Spark Kinema platform becoming a viable option for independent artists, they're going to just recreate the same problems with Sundance. They're going to recreate the same problems because the core problem is just that there's an oversupply of material and a lack of spaces and attention span and time to show it all. So I don't see a world where Duplass can execute this and then open the door and say, everyone come follow me, let's all do this together, and it's a viable way to make a living as an independent artist. That's some of those claims is where I think that you're just going to recreate the same problems that every other platform has out there.
Yeah, when I said towards the beginning that this is something that indie artists have been doing. I meant more sort of the just like getting creative about ways to fundraise or ways to get your stuff out there, et cetera, et cetera. But I do agree. He has this quote towards the end where he says, you don't need Sundance anymore, which I don't know if need is the right word, but I think Sundance certainly isn't the juggernaut that it used to be anymore in terms of getting these things out there. And then he goes on to say, you don't need Netflix, you don't need anybody. And that's the point. Well, they'll start coming to you and you can make that decision. And I think that last bit of that quote is like way too optimistic. I don't think Netflix is going to see something like this happening and then all of a sudden be like, oh God, we're going to, I guess, you know what I mean? That feels like a little rosy-eyed to me.
Well, Netflix, I would say yes, but I think a lot of the other streamers and the streamers that are a little bit more hungry for, that are just, that are getting trounced by Netflix and they need more things that are interesting and cool to put onto the platform. I think that I totally buy what he's selling in terms of a negotiating tactic. This is something that I spoke with about in my interview with Andrew Callahan as well, who had, self-released his documentary Dear Kelly, and it had become the most successful direct to customer documentary since Coney 2012. So 15 years of the internet, and he has sold more direct to consumer rentals of his documentary than anybody else. And that was his strategy. It was basically you need to go to these companies and with the data and the proof of how you are driving subscriptions, all your sort of watch time, watch rate. So this is like the zeitgeist is happening as far as independent creators who already have a platform that they can leverage and an audience that they can inspire to come watch their stuff, and looking to use these sort of self-starter success stories to negotiate better deals with the streamers, because right now the deal making is like everyone is just getting crushed, but we have yet to see. We have yet to really point to an example and say, yes, that's the person who did it. That's the successful model. And so right now it's still all sort of wishful thinking.
Yeah, I guess, we'll see kind of towards the end of April how this all shakes out for him. I am interested to see how that works because he like recently sold a show out of Sundance to Netflix. So like that's where he kind of, I think the article at least points to that as sort of the impetus that he kind of found out, well, I'm already doing the necessary things to get the word out about the show, et cetera, et cetera. Why can't I just take on all the other myself as well? So, I mean, I wish all the best. I hope this works. That would be really amazing. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that he's talking about, I mean, it ties into so many other things that we talk about on this show. Why do film directors and why do studios tell directors that that their cast have to reach a quota of Instagram followers in total, right? What Maya Hawke was talking about a few months ago. Because so much of these companies, in an effort to because digital companies are able to streamline themselves to having zero assets and zero liabilities on their books, and they're able to make so much money because they only exist in a digital space, that also enables them to offload so much of the labor when it comes to marketing, when it comes to word of mouth marketing. Sorry, that was like searching for that word. They're able to offload all the word of mouth marketing onto the artists that made it, as opposed to the old model of like, you have to go on the talk shows and you have to get in magazines and you have to exist within a physical media landscape in order to promote something. Now you're able to outsource all of that back to the artist. It's the same way that actors, having to self-tape at home, like all of that labor gets just pushed down the line to the people that have have the least amount of power, because everybody else is able to strip themselves of the assets that cost them money. And so look, there is without a doubt, digital media has enabled an incredible wealth transfer to the top. We see it in all areas of society, not just in entertainment. But this is an example where we do have an artist who is trying to address these issues in a conscious and systemic way. I absolutely applaud him for that, and I just hope that it works. And if the end result is that we have an independent distribution platform that values, that they see money as a means to making more art as opposed to art as a means to making more money, then that will be great. And I would be very excited.
For sure. The thing you brought up about Instagram just reminded me, and I looked it up to make sure I was remembering it right, but Scarlett Johansson has been talking about how the studio, I can't remember what studio is doing Jurassic World, and I don't really care. I think it's Universal. But
Yeah, Universal,
they
for sure.
have been pressuring her to join Instagram to do Jurassic World publicity, and she's just been like, no. And I was a little shocked just because I kind of thought she was famous enough. Like, the fact that she kind of got off Instagram, like, didn't surprise me, you know? But, like, it's exactly what you're talking about. They want her to have one so she can do promotion on her own Instagram.
Why has Scarlett Johansson become the fulcrum of so many
things,
like marketing, actor issues? I can't tell if she's like, for some reason she is actually targeted by this, or if she's very good at spinning just the normal bullshit of life into a narrative
PR campaign behind her.
Yeah, where she's always the victim. ScarJo's always being, Sam Altman's leaving her creepy voicemails, and Universal's telling her to get on Instagram. And I don't know if you saw last week, there was some article about, like, she doesn't want to take selfies with people because
people were being wild about that. Sorry, this is such a tangent, but people were like, I was scrolling through the Instagram comments on that. For people who didn't see it, she essentially said something like, I don't like taking pictures of people when I'm out in public,
like out with
I
my
guess.
Family. It's just like, and
she phrased it as like, I'm not working, which is like the truth. And people got so offended, like, how ungrateful. And I was like, Jesus, what's wrong with everyone? But you're right. She's always just keeping herself in the news there, ScarJo.
Yeah. Always something
for better
wrong,
or for worse. All right, let's move on to our next. I'm actually really excited to hear your thoughts on this one. So, because I have some strong thoughts, I think. This isn't so much as a news piece, I guess, as a sort of, it's a piece that came out in the New Yorker, an essay. It's titled "The New Literalism, Plaguing Movies." It's by Namwali Serpell, who's in the New Yorker again. Essentially what she means when she says the new literalism, and this is a quote from towards the beginning of the article, quote, "When I say literalism, I don't mean realistic or plainly literal. I mean literalist, as when we say something is on the nose or heavy-handed, that it hammers away at us or beats a dead horse, as these phrases imply, to restate the screamingly obvious does a kind of violence to art," unquote. And then she essentially goes through, she does a lot of the big picture nominees this year, basically goes through a lot of the big name movies this year, a lot of which were nominated for Oscars, and talked about how, in her view, they all kind of fall into this new literalism plague, as she would put it. And so my big point on this article is I really agree with the premise. I think the examples, in my opinion, are like really cherry picked and not very good. What did you think about it?
I kind of agree. I would like you to go further. Yeah, tell me why.
Okay.
What do you? Yeah, what is it that you agree with overall, and what is your issue with the examples?
So, I do think, and she kind of goes into a conversation about like media illiteracy and like the dumbing down of culture. And overall, I think that is something that's definitely happening. I think the movies that are made for us are very obvious. Even movies that I enjoy, like big pop culture entertainment, it is on the nose. It is very obvious. It is, I think I remember us talking about like, it was like last year, maybe even, about like writers getting, notes from execs or whatever that they need to like make sure they say this instead of leaving it up to interpretation to make sure people get it because they might be looking at their phones, et cetera, et cetera. So I 100% agree with the fact that that is something that is a problem within our current, I would say even like artistic landscape, not just movies. And I have been, as a little bit of a side note, but I've been working on a little bit of a take lately, which I think sort of falls into this. And I try to hold myself accountable with this as well. I think in a lot of criticism lately, or in a lot of reactions to movies, there is this conflation between like being able to figure out a metaphor and thinking the metaphor is good. Like, I call them like puzzle movies. Like, I'm trying to figure out a good way to describe this, but like, I think my main point is just because you understand the metaphor doesn't necessarily mean the metaphor is good. And we like understanding the metaphor because that makes us feel smart. And sometimes I think there can be a conflation with like, that's actually a good metaphor just because I understand it. And I think that ties in like a little bit to what she's saying. But to go to the examples, I just think it's really cherry picked. Like I'm going to just go through two right here. I'm going to use Anora and Conclave. And she uses Anora as sort of example of a movie that is very popular among critics that is kind of, in her view, part of this new literalist trend, I guess. And she describes it as a Cinderella story and kind of calls out the scene, if you've seen the movie, where Annie, it's right after she gets married, she literally calls herself Cinderella. Like, I'm Cinderella, I'm going to have my honeymoon at Disney World or whatever it might be. Is that on the nose? Yes. Maybe meant to be a little ironic, but on the nose? Sure. My issue is that's one scene in that movie, and you could easily like grab the two last scenes between her and Igor and be like, but that's not this. Like, you know what I mean? And then I think at the end, she uses a scene from Conclave, which seems to be a movie that she really liked, to sort of, and it's a movie that I liked. I had a great time at Conclave, and sort of calls out this one scene as not being very obvious or not, it's like revelatory without being obvious, I guess. There's also a scene in Conclave where Lawrence votes for himself for cardinal, and then the Sistine Chapel explodes. You know what I mean? Like, you can cherry pick any example from any of these movies to sort of like make it fit the narrative or not, I guess. So that's sort of my big critique of this piece. And this always makes me frustrated, like when I agree with someone's overall thesis, but I just think the examples are really cherry picked, I guess.
Yeah, you really took the words out of my mouth here. But I love your takes across the board. Mm-hmm. I mean, let me first of all say I feel like we're being very positive on this episode of Crash Zoom, which is a wonderful, wonderful
wonderful
change.
Little turn for us. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're usually a pinnacle of negativity, or is it the industry that's negative and we're just reporting on it anyway? But let me just say, I love that this article existed.
Me too.
I don't know if you saw this, but this was definitely sort of algorithmically targeted to me on Instagram. As soon as they posted it, it showed up right in my feed. It had a very cool graphic on Instagram with a sort of an infinity sign with a snake eating its own tail sort of thing, and new literalism in movies. Yeah, I immediately clicked on it. I immediately read it. And it was so refreshing to have some thoughtful, well-written, high-minded criticism of film. And I would, and look, there's so many things that you brought up that kind of triggered me and made me want to fire back. And part of me wanted to come on here and be like, well, like, here we have, she's never made a movie. Like, who is she to say, that this is too literal?
That's always what people say about critics, Aaron.
I know, but no. Then I tried to remind myself. It's like, well, I mean, Pauline Kael has never made a movie, and like, and she's written some spiky articles that I absolutely love, and things that I totally disagree with, but I love that she did it. So I was trying to remind myself, like, no, this is a long tradition.
It's really well written. We should say that it's smart, well written. Yeah,
check out the piece. It is really, really, really worth reading. Now, having said that, I couldn't agree with you more. Having just rewatched Anora and having this article in my mind as I watched it, the context of that scene that she cherry picks to criticize it for being too literal is actually, it is completely rooted within the character. It is, and it tells us something far deeper about the character and her psychology. And is there a hitting the nail on the head sort of result of that scene? Yes, but this is demonstrating a young woman. She's 25 years old. She just hit the lottery. She's not even starting by calling herself Cinderella. She's talking about her honeymoon suite and how she's always dreamed of having her honeymoon at Disney World in the princess suite. And it's her friend who then shouts after her and says, Cinderella! Like, oh my God. Okay, like, that is revealing things about the character. That is revealing things about the psychology of the character. It's showing her immaturity, her emotional immaturity, where she's come from, how she sees herself. And like you astutely pointed out, the last two scenes of that film, where we have this dramatic downshift in energy, things are happening without being spoken. and just as evidenced as my post-film dinner with my friends the other night, people who do not watch movies, and actually dissecting the final two scenes of that movie over the dinner table. What did it mean? What was Annie thinking? Where does she go from here? There is a lot to read into, and Sean Baker, the filmmaker, puts it in the hands of the audience to make sense of a human experience that he has captured on film. And I think that it does what the absolute best things that movies do, giving us a story that exists in the subtext and allows us to experience them as humans emotionally, and then to think about them after the fact. So I totally disagree with that. I also thought she brought up the Nickel Boys. She was critical of the Nickel Boys.
Yeah.
And I thought this was look, she's an author. She's a writer. She's written multiple novels. I think it's just very clear that she just liked the novel of Nickel Boys better. She read it. She clearly read it first. She knew what the twist was, because she was like, Nickel Boys relied on this first person POV at twist ending, which was way more deftly handled in the book, in third person, might I add. And it's like, all right, well, like, I don't think you're watching the movie on its own terms.
Yeah, no, that caught my eye as well, because I also love the novel of Nickel Boys, and I do think the twist is much more surprising in the book, but at the same time, I had already read the book. It's impossible for me to discern if I would have like caught on. You know what I mean? It's hard to like know if I would have caught on if I hadn't read it. How do I figure that out? You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I also found it strange that all of her examples she was clearly choosing from the Best Picture nominees.
I think that's totally fine, because she's trying to make a point, right? Like, so picking like the, I guess, upper echelon of art in cinema would be the place to pick if you're kind of making this argument.
Sure, but it's not that American popular films have ever been really known for their subtlety. I mean, as far as a marketplace and a sort of mass market, product factory, like, go through the list of Oscar nominees and winners and find me a real subtle gem in there. I mean, there's not many of them. We are a pretty overt, on the nose, loud, and it's the filmmakers that can balance those things with the deeper meanings that really in the American market get elevated above the rest. I think, but one of the things that I keep coming back to in the world of film in 2025 is that the amount of stuff we have is just so vast. I mean, the films that we have there are so many of them. And I of course I just wanted to go through, I mean, like, some of the things that just popped off the top of my head that are some of the most that totally go against her argument within just the last 5 years. I mean, films like Memoria, anything by Joe, would be like a perfect example of like not literalism at all. We've got, I mean, things like Burning, Return to Seoul, anything by Bygone. And then even here in America, like the film, that feeling, the feeling that the time for doing something has passed. Anything by Kelly Reichardt, Jane Schoenbrun's two films, I think, totally defy the new literalism accusations. The Sweet East from last year, I think, defies the sort of new literalism. So, look, like, shout out to her for writing it. I love your takes, girl. Like, keep putting them out there. I want to read them, and I want to disagree with them, because it gets me fired up, and I love to get fired up about movies.
Yeah. the Conclave thing really made me laugh, because I was like, the Sistine Chapel blows up when he votes for himself. A scene I love. It made me laugh so hard. I thought it was so funny. But like,
what did you described Conclave to me like months ago as, you called it like,
it's Mean Girls it's Mean Girls with Cardinals. And it's great. Yeah. I had so much fun. It was a blast.
But it was, I had that in the back of my mind as you're getting to the end of this, high-minded New Yorker article, really ripping a new one into the fabric of American cinema, and she gets to the end and says, "Conclave, that's a masterwork." It was just like,
which I love the take, and I remember the scene she's talking about, and I agree, it's like a lovely scene. But again, the Sistine Chapel does explode in that movie. Sorry to ruin Conclave for you, I guess. But
spoiler.
Oh man, spoiler alert spoiler alert. All right, let's move on. So this is from Ankler. It was written by Elaine Lowe, this next little piece of business. And it's titled "The First Shows Where Writers Scored Streaming Bonuses." So Essentially, this is kind of dissecting the first round of streaming bonuses that are starting to come in since the 2023 strikes. So to kind of go back a little bit, with those strikes, one of the demands was a new source of revenue to kind of replace the, I guess, residuals basis for, old shows that were on TV, playing reruns, whatever it might be. So this was sort of to create a residual for streaming shows and films. And the new performance bonuses would give writers, actors, and directors a chance to just finally get in some of those get-ins on the upside of hit projects, I guess I should say. So the Ankler article has a look at the first shows that have sort of qualified for these bonuses. So we've got Bridgerton's season 3, which I think kind of comes as no surprise. Griselda, which was on Netflix and is about a female drug kingpin, I believe. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Amazon's Fallout, and then this was the most surprising one to me, Peacock's Ted, which is a Seth MacFarlane series based on the 2 hit Ted movies. I did not know this existed until I read this article.
Oh, the rich just get richer. It's just the wealth.
Yes.
The wealth concentrates around Ted.
Around Ted. So, running through this article, I think there's still some sort of hesitancy around how these will sort of compare, I guess, to the world before. And the rundown towards the end of this article seems to be that they're not as good as before, but it's still a step in the right direction. There's a quote in here where someone says, it's a good start. We got a foot in the door, but it's nothing near traditional TV residuals. So yeah, what are your sort of thoughts as this starts to come out?
Yeah, I definitely a step in the right direction. My concern with this all the way back when the strikes were taking place was beforehand, residuals were calculated on a very inexact science. You did not have the really hard data of who was watching what and when. And my fear was that in striking to get to the bargaining table for residuals in the digital environment, you would be left with a situation where the streamers would have all this micro data and essentially parse out money by the minute. And my fear, by minute watched, I should say, of a given show, because they would actually have the data. You could not do that in the world of linear cable. And my fear was that artists would demand more money. The streamers would counter and say, okay, we'll do it in a sort of minute watched or second watched or eyeball on screen watched.
Sure.
They would hyper monetize it down to these little metrics, and artists would make the mistake of saying, okay, and then a lot of artists would get time to look at the analytics of their show, and they would be facing a hard reality that they were not as watched as they thought they were. Yeah. And so I thought, and I think that's probably happening under the hood here, but by using this just general, the only way to get the bonus of 50% on top of the standard residual to credited writers, this is just for the WGA, is that a streaming series has to be viewed by 20% or more of a platform's domestic subscribers. And I think that was actually a pretty smart negotiating tactic from the WGA and a smart way to sort of counteract some of those micro metrics that the streamers can use to disenfranchise artists. That 20% number is a nice kind of base round thing. I think it could probably potentially be lowered in future negotiations. That's what lowered down to a 15% number in future negotiations. But it does solve for some of that. As long as you're being watched by a large subsection of the subscriber base, you're going to get extra money. Granted, the money, as it was stated within this article, the money is not near where it was back during the glory days of linear television, which was just... It was just such a cash cow. It's hard to overstate how much money has been lost by the death of linear cable. The cable bundle was so beneficial to every party involved, and so many of the problems that we're seeing across entertainment are downstream of the death of linear cable. So, I think it's a totally agree, step in the right direction. And I thought the most interesting thing of this article was how this, although we don't have any proof of this yet, that this might be a really strong incentive structure for a show to actually go to the smaller streamer,
I was gonna
such
bring
as
that up.
Peacock,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so much easier to capture 20% of the Peacock subscriber base, which is only 7.2. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
36 million.
Yeah, Peacock only has
subscribers.
36 million. So you only need 7.2 million people to watch your show on Peacock for you to get a residual bump versus 20 million on Netflix, because there's so many more domestic subscribers on Netflix. So really, really interesting stuff. I would love to know if a show actually is changing course from Netflix to Peacock in terms of distribution. I don't know if the numbers really like justify that switch, but
I don't know. Well,
it's an interesting thought.
I think that must be like why Ted got it, right? Like, I think it's their most watched original series to date, but it doesn't. I mean, maybe it does say on here how many people have watched it. Let me see if I can find it. But what were you going to say?
I mean, it never ceases to amaze me the amount of people that slurp down anything Seth MacFarlane. It is just shocking to me. I find his writing to be just such trash. I can't stand anything that he's ever made. And so the fact that he gets the numbers that he does, because I think, I mean, it was just also released recently that Family Guy is the #1 show on Hulu, I believe. Family Guy and Bob's Burgers, I think, is like the 2 most watched shows on Hulu and account for like 9% of all of Hulu hours watched, which is just so disturbing to me. But so I think Ted probably would have gotten numbers anywhere. I don't know. What are you seeing?
Okay, I don't know if they've released the actual number of viewers. This says, according to Screen Rant, viewed for 542 million minutes in its premiere week, but that, I don't know if that really says much. I don't know how to do that math.
I don't think that really that tells us.
So it doesn't.
Total viewers number.
Right. It doesn't say what the total viewers are, but I'd be interested to hear, just because if it's something like, if it's like between that 7.2 million and whatever the Netflix one is, like 20 million, then like, that's like a great strategy,
Yeah, good. Seth MacFarlane really needs that extra like $4,000 an episode or whatever he's getting.
No, but I just mean for smaller creatives looking to get their TV shows, hoping to get that bonus, that might be the way to go,
Totally.
Yeah. It also mentioned that they have less like competition on their homepage, which like makes a lot of sense, So like, you're up there if you're on the Peacock homepage.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how this continues to play out. And you're right, like whenever the next negotiation is in a few years, just to see like if they're gonna like put that number down or how they'll kind of continue to evolve this, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they just what I was saying beforehand. I mean, the wealth transfer to the top is obscene. Now, there is less money to go around than there historically was, and home videos falling through, and linear cables falling through, whatever. But the artists are definitely still getting screwed in the deal.
Sure.
So this will continue to be developed, and it's exciting to track these first residual payments coming out. And to see how it turns out. I will not be eligible for any of these new negotiation residual payments. All my residual checks are still locked in the old model, but I would be curious to see, the next job that I book. I would be excited to see like if a little bump was coming.
I did find it. The article mentioned that I think most of these, all but one of these TV shows that initially got it are IP, essentially. Bridgerton is based off a book series. Fallout's based off a video game. Ted is based off the Ted movies. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a remake. And Griselda, I think, is the one original, but it's based off a real person. I don't know how that doesn't really like stand up, I guess, to the other things those TV shows are based on. But I think that is an interesting point.
Yeah, IP keeps winning. It's in the oversaturated market. It's the comfortable, digestible. Hey, I've heard of that before. That just keeps aggregating power, money, and eyeballs around the thing that already has the power, money, and the eyeballs.
Sure. All right, let's move into our next and last article for the week. So this is from NPR. It's by Mandela Del Barco. Hope I pronounced your first name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. But it's titled "Oh Cinema Co-Founder Slams Proposed Eviction Over Film." So Aaron sent this to me late last week. It was our last addition to the roundup this week. Essentially, O Cinema, which is an independent movie theater in South Beach in Miami. So this theater has been showing the documentary that just won Best Documentary at the Oscars. It's called No Other Land. It is about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, specifically in the occupied West Bank, and is about kind of the destruction of this Palestinian community who have been resisting forced displacement by the Israeli military. So that's what this is about. Obviously, Israel-Palestine is a really fraught conversation right now for a lot of people. But the Miami Beach's mayor called the documentary quote unquote anti-Semitic and is now trying to cut off the city's funding and lease to Do Cinema, which is the cinemas operating on city property, basically. So he's proposing that Miami Beach terminate its lease to O Cinema and withhold the remainder of its nearly $80,000 grant money to the theater. The Miami Beach City Commission is supposed to vote on the resolution, I believe, tomorrow on Wednesday. So the quote that starts off this article headline is, "Sounds like censorship to me." And the whole time I was just like, yeah, me too. An elected official trying to dictate what is shown at an indie movie theater. This is garbage. This is awful. Scary.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's so horrific. I can't even. I don't know where to begin. I mean, I wanted this to be added to the rundown just because this type of censorship within art it's just shameful. It's horrible. The fact that this even feels somewhat normal in this day and age is it disturbs me so deeply. I hate that independent cinemas are operating at such a tight margin and are so dependent upon, various, just the crosshairs of government and funding and all these other sort of things where they are so dependent upon other organizations to keep the doors open. But this is just shameful behavior from the mayor of Miami. The history of censorship in film is always like a disturbing one, and the choice to censor always looks absolutely ridiculous and terrible in hindsight. We have the history of the Hays Code. We have the history of like all these varying degrees of censorship in films. But there's not that many films that have like truly been banned or blackballed out of the marketplace altogether. And they've usually found some way to survive. And the fact that people are doing this about a documentary that so clearly has merit. I mean, and the Academy Awards was just the latest cherry on top. This is a film that was made by a Palestinian and a Jewish filmmaker.
Yeah, two Palestinian and two Israeli, kind of a coalition. Yeah.
Yeah, a coalition of filmmakers offering a varied perspective on a very on an issue that people need perspective on. I think it's a clear violation of their First Amendment rights as artists, and all I can say is that I will be calling a Miami commissioner today as an outside caller to complain about this.
We should say it is the mayor of Miami Beach, just because I don't want the mayor of Miami.
Beach, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Important distinction.
I don't want the mayor of Miami. Yeah. Coming at us. I don't know if he listens to this podcast or she. Hi, if you do. But yeah, this whole thing just really sucks. I don't really know what else to kind of put as a finer point. Like, I really hope the commission that's set to discuss this sees this as what it is, which is just blatant censorship. And film is not anti-Semitic. It is like, it's just, the whole thing I think is so ridiculous and so blatant. And you're right. Like, I was trying to think of other instances where, and like, I'm sure there are some within, like, I guess the time in history where I think there must have been some is like, some like racist, like there must have been some around like To Kill a Mockingbird. That is the one that's like sticking in my head, sort of like in the South. Like, I feel I should look this up maybe while we continue to discuss this, but I feel like there were some Southern cities who like maybe were a little like uppity about that movie playing at the time, like in the 60s, but that is kind of the only comp I can like think of. And I don't have specifics on it. You know what I mean? But that like sticks in my brain as something maybe like a little akin to this.
Yeah, I feel it,
Yeah.
but in history, moral panics were by and large very localized.
Yeah.
The problem with today is because of this because everything is mass market media, because everything is mass media, you know, and spread all over. If this effort to shut down this cinema is successful, that is a clear sign to every cinema, both independent and within a major company, that they should not take the risk to play anything risky. So you couldn't have even some historical screening of a controversial film on either side of the political issue, you know,
Right.
and you can't take that risk, and that's terrifying. These theaters are operating at a very slim margin. It's very expensive to operate a movie theater, and yet they are serving an essential function within society of bringing people together. I mean, this is a secular church, but it does not have the protections of a church, and it's terrifying to think that an artistic voices could be silenced in this way. There are real world ramifications for this, and I shudder to think what could happen if this succeeds.
Right. And it should be mentioned specifically for films like this, like No Other Land. This is very important. This film, despite winning an Oscar, still has no US distribution. So this is how they've been getting the movie seen at art house theaters like O Cinema, who are screening it independently of any major distributor. So like they are like very vital for people to be able to see this movie.
Yeah, but we have to, God, we as Americans should reach for the ideal world where these sort of shared spaces, these shared communal spaces, everyone should be able to walk in and out of them and to have a voice, and that just because a movie is playing that you disagree with does not mean that you can't come back to that space the next day to watch a movie that you do agree with or that you do enjoy. That is not what this country is supposed to be about. This is and movie theaters are supposed to be a place of commons and a place of ideas. So the fact that this theater would be targeted in this way it's just horrific. It's un-American. And I know, of course, we can point to a million examples in our history where America has not lived up to its ideals. I'm not looking to rehash that, and I'm not looking to point out. I'm talking about the dream of America that we should all be aspiring to, that I'm aspiring to, that I would like to see for my child. And the fact that dream is so tarnished on both sides, whether people think that it never existed or people think that it only existed in the past and that they somehow have to, bring back some sort of glorious past that never existed. Both of those arguments, I think, are terrible, and we should all be striving for a fairer and more perfect union. And this is not it. This censoring art is not the fulfillment of that dream.
No, and like you said, like A, you don't have to go see a movie that you think you might disagree with, but B, you have the opportunity to go see a movie that maybe you think you disagree with, and maybe that'll change your perspective. And that's also like a beautiful thing. And it's just, you don't have to do it in the first place, but you could. And that's like what movies and art is about, right? I don't know.
I mean, listen, that's an altruistic vision that I can't get behind. I mean, I'm not going to go see I'm not going to go see some of these like child trafficking, like QAnon movies coming out of Angel Studios. But I'm not going to boycott a theater.
All cinema, but like the point is,
hey, it's cinema too. It's cinema too. But that's what I'm saying. There's room for all. Just because you played some Angel Studios, Jesus, whatever.
But
weird
that's the thing. Like,
QAnon
those
thing.
movies don't get boycotted, or maybe they do, but like not to this extent, right? And like, I'm not saying those movies should be boycotted. I don't think they should. I don't want to go see that movie, but the opportunity to learn more about like this conflict and places in the world and other conflicts that are going on in the world, that is something people should welcome, in my opinion.
I totally agree. No, I'm throwing out, I'm just trying to throw out the first example from the other side. All that to say is that whatever movies are being played in a movie theater should not preclude you from going to that movie theater the next night. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
I'm not trying to drag you to something that you don't want to see if you're not ready for it. Okay. But come on, don't destroy the building. Don't destroy the church. Jesus Christ.
Right. It's ridiculous. I really hope this goes well for O Cinema tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have an update by the next time we record. But
yeah,
sucks. Well, we were really positive, and then we ended on such a negative note.
Yeah, well, if the mayor of Miami Beach wasn't wilding so hard, we would have just kept it positive the whole time.
That's true. This is your fault.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a great episode, I think, by and large. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Totally.
Want to get out there?
Oh, I know you. Absolutely. Next week, March 27th, at the Plaza Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, a wonderful, uncensored independent cinema space. I will be playing The Warriors from 1979, Walter Hill's classic New York film on 35 millimeter. We have a very rare 35 millimeter print directly from Paramount as part of Behind the Slate Presents. So come out at 7:30 p.m. If you come dressed with a gang of 3 or more people, you will get free prizes and free popcorn. It's going to be amazing. As always, Peyton Johnson's going to be there in the lobby talking to folks. I'm going to be doing a live podcast before and after the film. It's going to be a great time. So come out to the Plaza Theater March 27th at 7:30 p.m.
I'll be there. I'm excited.
Yes. What about you? Do you have anything to plug?
All right. I don't have anything to plug for me personally besides the usual, subscribe to Scene, subscribe to Rough Draft, daily newsletter. It's great. But exciting news, my boyfriend, Cameron Shaw, humble brag, just got his first short film into a festival. Woo! Whoop, 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 whoop. We're very excited over here. So Swapped at Length, which is his short film, just got into the Georgia Shorts Film Festival. So yeah, we're all very excited.
Premiere? World premiere?
I think that'll be the premiere because everything else he's applied to is way further out. So yeah, that's exciting. I think this is in April. Let me get out the main dates of that festival. I believe it's in April. Georgia Shorts Film Festival 2025. Doing some live Googling. Everyone loves that.
Great radio. An hour and 10 minutes in.
Okay. It is Sunday, May 25th. So unless something, I believe that'll probably be the premiere, just because everything else hasn't let them know yet, and they're way further out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Sunday, May 25th, is that going to be here in Atlanta?
Yes, it is at the Limelight Theater, I believe, and it's the Georgia Shorts Film Festival. Yeah, really exciting.
I can ride my bike. Perfect.
Oh my gosh,
all right, I will be
so
there.
Fun.
Congrats to Cameron, Festy Besties, and I'll be out there May 25th.
Very exciting stuff, but that's all I got to plug. So exciting.
Amazing. Well, this has been great, Sammie. Thank you so much. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Hit us with the 5 stars. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. Write a comment. Those little gestures really go a long way to helping us out. As always, you can follow us on Instagram at Crash Zoom Podcast, on TikTok at Crash Zoom Podcast, and you can email us. crashzoompod@gmail.com. That's crashzoompod@gmail.com. This has been fabulous. Sammie, thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.